Okay, I just watched your third video in the Kalam cosmological argument, and that's true. If there was a Big Bang type beginning, then there would need to be a cause, and I've thought about that cause and what it would be as well, and come to me to the same conclusions you would. It'd have to, first of all, be outside of time, and so therefore anything it did, it would be constantly doing. And most of what you said sort of rang true with what I'd thought about before the Big Bang. And I also thought, say it was your mind being God, who created our universe, our time and space and everything else. Well, it still doesn't leave out the possibility at all for there to be other beings just like him outside of time. So I don't know if you believe that your God is the only one, but certainly by your arguments here, it doesn't preclude there being many gods at all. Also, it's interesting to think that a God like that is infinite. This is true, right? He's an infinite being. He is like infinite. That's what he would be. And I just wonder, looking at your God as an infinite being in light of all your premise 2 arguments, or at least the first 2 philosophical ones, would be an interesting exercise in mental gymnastics, I suppose you'd call it. Would you define that God of your reckoning as infinite, and then could he do an infinite number of things? And that leads you all the way down to the all-powerful paradoxes of the irresistible force and the immovable object. So all really interesting things I'd like to hear your perspective on. Anyway, that's my rambling thoughts on your third video. But I think I'll try and sum up my refutations in a more concise way in my next little snippet. So I'll be back in a second. Right, your premise 1: whatever begins to exist has a cause. Right, that's true. Sort of, you have to be getting into to refute that, you'd have to be actually talking about the meaning of the word begin and exist and cause, and it's just sort of semantics, I think. Anyway, alright, premise 2: the universe began to exist. Your arguments for that: the impossibility of an actually infinite number of things. You can't really talk about infinity as a number of things, as I mentioned with my infinitesimal sort of argument. You can have an infinite number of events, such as me moving from here to here is composed of an infinite number of movements in between, and there's no problem with that. So that's obviously not impossible. So it's the same argument goes for your infinity. Could there have been an infinity of time before now? Fine, just the same. Yes, there could have. The same as there's an infinite number of movements to get from here to here. It's rooted in the definition of infinity, is where I refute that premise, that argument, for premise 2, the Kalam argument. Okay, right, argument 2 you've got here, the impossibility of traversing the infinite. Sorry, that was my infinitesimal infinity argument, was your premise 2. The impossibility of traversing the infinite is refuted by the fact that if you look at it on the flip side, the infinitesimal side, it doesn't make any sense. It's just not. It's not a true way to logically disprove that the universe was not infinite. And so the impossibility of an actual infinite number of things is again rooted in the definition or the mathematical construct of infinity and what it actually means. You can't sort of label it to things as you did in for example, the Hilbert paradox. And if you want me to talk more about the nature of infinity, I'll do that in later videos. And I'll always link it back to what you've written here. in my arguments. Okay, and the third one, your two scientific ones. The expansion of the universe. Okay, well, expansion of the universe is based on Hubble redshift, or Hubble's law of redshift, which is not 100%. I mean, I'm sure any scientist would, well, of course they would. There is aberrations to it. People choose not to look at these things sometimes. Yeah, no, it's funny. People choose not to look at, theists choose not to look at little bits of the Bible sometimes. And the same is true for these scientists, that sometimes they choose not to look at the data that doesn't fit. You know, gee, I wonder what percentage of those scientists would be theists. You know, that they're well practiced in just picking and choosing what they want to use and hear. So I guess if they go into science, why not do the same thing? Yeah, but there are a lot of scientists out there that do look at these anomalies, and Hubble's law is based on his redshift and apparent magnitude or distance correlation, and also thinking that, which leads to the fact that redshift then must only be due to the Doppler shift, the receding velocity. But there are at least two other methods that the redshift can be derived from, and I'll go into that again more if you would like. But the expansion of the universe is due to the Hubble redshift, which is not scientifically, it's almost falsified by some of the observations going around. But again, I'll talk about that later if you want. But that's third argument down for the premise 2 of the Kalam argument. And of course, the thermodynamic properties of the universe is probably the easiest one to discount, because you can't even apply the second law of thermodynamics to a universe which is not finite. So the whole thing there is just wrong. What did you say actually? You put it in a nice way as well. I was like, yeah, I was trying to measure in inches the smell of a rose. Same thing with that. You can't use the second law of thermodynamics or to describe an infinite universe. Alright, so there's my 3 refutations, and I still stand by my atheist view. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, your views on the if God, or if there was a Big Bang, if there was a beginning, yeah, your ponderings on, if there was a beginning, what was the cause? Now, I've thought a lot about that as well, and came to a lot of the same conclusions as you did. That it would have to be a mind, because the only things that exist outside time, like you said, are mind and abstract things like infinity. Yeah, so which can still be applied to God himself. He must be a mind. This is true. But he might not be the only mind, and he may not even be the most powerful mind or the biggest mind, if you go down that path. But to believe, as I do, that the universe didn't have a beginning, which is supported, in my view, much more by the evidence of astronomical community these days. Anyway, it's really nice to watch your video, and I hope you reply and get some kind of discourse going on. Geez, any one of these very interesting points you've brought up. I've never heard of the Kalam argument for God before. That's interesting. It's definitely, you know, the most thought out one I've ever heard. And just as you have problems with street atheists and their silly ideas and their lack of motivation to really argue, well, it's the same for atheists. Probably worse for us trying to find an intelligent theist to even get past their dogma and even listen to you, and even after they listen to you, to understand you, and still not be offended enough to discourse on it. You know, we need intelligent people, and I think there's this, as it goes, far more intelligent atheists than there are intelligent Christians. Even taking into effect the relative numbers of those two populations. Anyway, I'll end this long rambling video now.